What's up, people? It's late at night. I figured I would do some study for EPT Barcelona, and one of these hands popped up that I thought was pretty interesting. With two players you may have heard of, Jason Mercier and Fedor Holz at the Super High Roller Bowl, which you can watch at Poker Central. If you don't have Poker Central yet, check your Apple TV or Amazon. There's a whole bunch of ways. Go to pokercentral.com, you can find that way. So here's a standard situation where Jason raises with queens and Fedor defends the blind with ace queen. Notice he doesn't 3-bet. A lot of people think, oh, 3-bet. He's going to 3-bet there very well. I mean, a hand like ace queen is really good to sort of like underplay there. Now it's a jack 6-4 flop. Fedor misses, but ace queen's good here a lot. Jason's going to open with a lot of hands that are behind ace queen. Now, Jason made it 14,000 before the flop, and he's making it 14,000 again. Pretty standard. Nothing crazy here. Now, Fedor's got a hand that's too good to just fold right now, right? He could do some goofy, crazy things. You know, they both have stack. They both got chips. But the most standard play here is call, and that's what Fedor is about to do here. Calling with the intention of thinking that, like, my ace queen's probably good, but not like, oh, wow, I'm looking to go cuckoo and just get it all in. So it's a little small ballish kind of poker there on the flop. Now this is a 6, so this is an interesting card. It puts backdoor clubs out there and pairs the middle card. Fedor is going to defend the blinds with a lot of hands. You know, a lot of people make the mistake of folding the big blind too much. Fedor is not one of those guys. So he could have 6-8, 6-5, king 6, queen 6, whole bunch of hands. So I love this play. I think it's really cool that he's going to bet here. I would say, personally, I think his bet size is too small. He bets 14. I think with this spot, if his goal here is to kind of, obviously either represent the 6, kind of, I hate to use the phrase find out where you're at, but it's a little bit of find out where you're at to a certain degree. I think a bet of more like 25, 30,000 was probably better here. Now, Jason's in an interesting spot. Typically, what you do with queens here is Fedor's saying, I either have a jack or a 6 or nothing, right? Two of those three things you can beat. So you typically just want to call here. But Jason's very perceptive. These guys probably have a history, played a lot of hands against each other. So he decides to raise. And this is a sick raise to 68,000, pretty good size. I wonder what Jason's plan would have been had Fedor re-raised, right? Because that's the tough spot. When you put yourself in a spot like this, you raise a turn, and now all of a sudden the guy re-raises, you're like, oops. But what could Fedor do that with? Could Fedor have something like 7-8 of clubs, 5-7 of clubs, double flush draw, double straight draw? So I think, there's a good chance that if Fedor re-raises here, Jason's going to actually make some sick laydown with queens. Tough to do that against an aggressive young kid like Fedor, though. Fedor's pretty stubborn in this spot, as you can see. He's thinking about all the combinations, thinking about the fact, well, if Jason has a jack or queens, he's not going to raise me here. So what Jason is doing is what we call polarizing his range a little bit with a hand that's actually, in the middle of those two things. He doesn't have the nuts. He doesn't have a 6. He doesn't have that big hand. He doesn't have nothing. He's got a hand that's just a strong value hand that beats most things. So it's confusing. And I think that's why Jason did it. He clearly doesn't put Fedor on a 6. Maybe he thinks that if Fedor had a 6, he would lead the turn. He would check and look to get some value with a check raise on the flop, on the turn, or maybe the river. So Fedor's definitely taking his time with this one. As you can see, he threw in his time bank thingy already. How this tournament works is there's a shot clock, as many of you know, and when you are out of time, you throw in one of those little things and you get an extra minute. You get 5 of those per day. Great concept. It's the way of the future for most high rollers. He calls. This is crazy. So Fedor definitely thinks that his ace-queen is good. He thinks maybe Jason picked up a draw. But man, really with a draw would he raise? Or he thinks Jason is just on completely nothing on air. Boom! Ace on the river. That was super unfortunate for Jason, who played the hand really interestingly. And I thought Fedor's call on the turn is pretty gutsy. I wonder what his plan would have been if it came, say, a 3 or a 9 or an 8 or a 10. And if Jason, bombed the river, was he going to call down with ace-queen high? So you see two great players there in a very interesting hand. Fedor getting lucky, but just a lot of interesting details. See, that's they did some things that were outside the norm, outside of what we consider standard. And when you get to the level when you're playing against a bunch of top pros, ABC poker will only get you so far. You have to throw some curveballs. So anyway, that's that.